Hi class, in the previous video I showed you how to find the total of scores, response scores for a given dimension, and you can use that approach to identify potential response set before you recode any negative worded questions. That approach is necessary, but it's not sufficient for you to identify all the response set that exists in your data set. So today in this video, I'm going to show you how to identify response set using Microsoft Excel. First thing you need to do is export your data file into the Excel format. So you do here from File to Export, then choose Excel. This window will pop up, and you don't have to change your file name because the extension name is already automatically changed to Excel format. You can just save. Then once you start the Excel, you go here, File, you open, and on the desktop, you can find that, remember that's where you saved the Excel file. You can find your file called Pilot Test and open it up. In my survey questions, from question 1 all the way to question 41, they are Likert scale response questions. For the sake of simplicity, I'm going to use question 1 to 10 to show you how to identify the response set. First, let's go to the column right next to your last question. Right click and insert a new column. I'm going to label this column as count. Next, I'm going to use a function. You can start with an equal sign, then count if, okay, then start with a range. Remember, we are doing from question 1 to 10, and anything that equal to 1, we're going to count it, okay? This for means that for respondent number 1, out of the 10 questions that he or she provided answer for, 4 of the answers were choices number 1. A response set means a respondent provided the same answer to all questions, regardless whether one or more questions were negatively worded. So what we need to do here is we're going to do the same thing. Just Control C, that's copy, and paste. When you have a large data set with a large number of responses, this will be hard to do, but in this case, I actually made a smaller data set with only about 60 responses. So you can see after I copy and paste, the number of ones from the first 10 questions are shown in this column for each respondent. And if you can eyeball the numbers, none of them has a value of 10. Next, we're going to repeat the same procedure, but rather than counting ones, this time we're going to count the number of twos. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing, Control C and Control P for all 60 respondents in my data set. And because it's relatively small, you can just eyeball the values. Again, nobody chose 2 for all 10 questions. What's the next one? We're going to count 3s. Okay, change the same range, but count to 3. And every time you make a change, you have to copy to the rest of the data set. And do we have respondent who chose 3 for all 10 questions? Yes. See, we have this one, and we have another one right here, and we have another one here, another one here. So out of the 60 respondents I kept here, 4 of them chose all 3s, which means their answers are invalid. You want to remove them from your data set. So what I'm going to do here is to sort the data. You go to here, sort and filter. You customize your sort. You want to sort by the variable created that's called count. And since you want to see the people who chose 3 for all 10 questions, you want to see from large to small. And if you go back here, you can see that the 4 respondents who chose 3 for all 10 questions are on the top now. You can just highlight them and delete. Okay. Next, we're going to count the number of 4s by respondent. So I changed the criterion to 4 and copy and paste to all respondent. And if you eyeball the values in this column, nobody chose all 4s. Last one, the one we haven't done, is 5. Okay, now I'm going to see if there are any respondents who choose 5 for all 10 questions. So I just copy and paste, Control V. Again, you can eyeball the value. We're fine here. Nobody chose 5 for all 10 questions. So this check helped us identify 4 respondents who answered all 10 questions by choosing the middle answers. You can divide your entire data set into subscales and run this procedure with each of the subscales, or you can run this check for all questions that share the same response pattern. One tricky side of identifying response set in Excel is the loss of variable informations, such as variable labels, the value labels for categorical variables. When you export and import the data file back and forth between SPSS and Excel. So my suggestion for you is to do this. Every time you identify respondent with the response set, do not delete them in Excel. Rather, go to their ID number and look up the same respondent in your SPSS data. Just remove the individuals with response set one by one. Since there should not be a large number of individuals who always mark the same answer for all questions, removing them individually from the SPSS data set once you identify them in Excel, it's easier than you remove them in Excel, then import the data back to SPSS, and then manually add back the information about individual variables. Okay. My last word of caution is to use this procedure when you have negatively worded questions in your survey. If you do not have negatively worded questions, it'd be reasonable to have respondents who choose the same answer all the way through. Of course, those who chose 3, always choose 3, you can remove them because they provided no information by choosing neither agree nor disagree all the way through. This is just a quick overview of the process. It will take time and practice for you to get comfortable with preparing survey data for your analysis.